Today, what we're going to talk about is that God empowers. God empowers. Say to yourself, God empowers people. Look at your neighbor and say, God empowers me. To empower. What does empower mean? A dictionary definition says that empower is to give someone the authority or the power to do something. It takes someone with authority giving that authority to someone else. It's to authorize, it's to allow. And so as we talk about empowering today, we're talking about someone with authority, God the Creator, who has empowered you. I have 3 points for you today as we look into this passage and we speak about how God empowers. The 3 points are identity, purpose, and then confirmation. We're going to speak first about identity. In the passage, we hear in verse 26 and verse 27 that God said that he was making mankind, that all of humanity was created in the likeness, in the image of God. In theological terms, and we talk about this as the Imago Dei. The Imago Dei is the image of God that exists in every person who's ever been created into the world. As Jeremy shared with you, part of the work I do in the present is I'm a licensed professional counselor. And so I spend a lot of time with people coming into my office or coming onto the screen and meeting with them and talking through like the things in life that hook them up and challenge them and help them to figure out how to navigate through that, to move forward in a life that would flourish. And much of that work is listening and asking a lot of questions, allowing people to figure those things out. And 2 of my favorite questions that I ask people, and I don't ask every client that comes through, but often somewhere in our counseling journey, we find our way to these 2 questions. And these 2 questions are questions that over and over again in my own life I go back to and I'll sit with a journal and reflect on and consider in the present how I view these questions. The first question is a who question. And the first question that I ask and I challenge people to ask is, who am I? That question is a question of identity. And as we look at this passage and we look at the text, what we see in the text is that part of your identity, part of who you are, I would say the basis of everything that who your identity is you are created in the likeness and the image of God. Think about that for a moment. When you think about who you are, when you think about what makes you you, the first thing that you should remember, the first thing we learn in the order of creation is that your identity is based in God's likeness. Now, there are many things that shape our identity, right? We understand this. There are all kinds of categories. When you ask this question, I would encourage you maybe even today to sit with a journal or talk with a friend over lunch and talk about like who you are. And it's worth thinking about because there's a lot to understand in our identity, but in that identity, there are lots of things that you can think about who you are based on who you're a part of. I'm a member of the light. That's part of your identity. You can think of who you are based on your ethnic heritage or your family story, and many of us gravitate towards those. And so I know this guy who's really proud of his Salvadorian heritage and took me to New York City and met his grandma, and we ate food in the Salvadorian community there. And you may say, well, I'm Ecuadorian too as well and very proud of that. Or maybe I'm Cuban American or wherever your story is. And so that's part of identity. Some of us base identity on things that we follow, maybe a team that you follow. Some of you might be Miami Heat fans. I don't know why you would be, but you might be. Some of you might be fans of other teams or other people. There might be some Swifties in the room. I don't know. It's a strange breed, but that might be part of your identity. Some of us base identity on the talents that we have. Maybe you're a musician. Maybe you have particular skills. Maybe you're athletic. Maybe you wonder if you have any of those things. Some of us base identity on our vocation or the job that we do in the present. So people say, who are you? And you say, I'm a carpenter, or I'm a barista, or I'm a teacher, or whatever that might be. Identity comes in all different forms. One of the ways that I think all of us, if we think about it long enough, think about our identity, is how we fit in relation to the family of origin that we're a part of. I'm a daughter. I'm a son. Maybe some of you are a mother or a father, a cousin, an auntie. All different identities that shape who we are, and some of us are all of those things. I just found out, I'm not going to say that publicly because it's not public yet. I almost said something that, but identity is formed through all of these things. But first and foremost, when we think of identity, it's the Imago Dei. The psalmist in Psalm 139 says it like this, as he's thinking about who he is in relation to God. He says that I was fearfully and I was wonderfully made, that God knit me together in my mother's womb. Think about that for a minute. That even before you were born, even before you came out of your mother's womb, God was forming your identity for this place and time. So everything that we are, everything that God calls us to, it flows out of that. And what does that even mean? What does it mean to be created in the image of God? There's a lot that it means. Theologians have written books about this. I'm not going to get into all of that. But I'll tell you a couple of things that are related to it. One is that part of the image of God is that you have a mind, that you have a will, that you have emotions. All of those things are part of what shape identity and who you are as created in the image of God. And so knowing your identity and knowing that you're someone that's created in God's image is a launching pad for how we establish God's pace of work. We have to know who we are before we approach this rhythm of work, because otherwise work becomes a way that we prove who we are. Let's keep going. Purpose. In verse 28, it told us that God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, to fill the earth and subdue it. There's a whole lot that mankind was being called to do at the very beginning. But it was a purpose. There was a job for them to do. And that job was to cultivate the earth, to subdue and rule over the earth, to care for the animals, to care for the vegetation. And all of that's laid out in verse 29 and 30. That was the purpose of humanity, was to work. It's a part of our purpose. I told you, ask people to think about two questions. The first question is a who question of who am I? The second question I think is essential for all of us to wrestle with in life is why am I here? So there's a who question and a why question. Who am I? And then why am I here? And that question it can be answered in many different ways, just like the identity question can, because the question can be like, why am I here today in this moment in this room? There's a purpose in that. Why am I at the school that I'm at or at the job that I'm at? Why am I here? And there's a purpose in that. And there's also a larger question of like all of life, why am I here? What is the purpose of my existence? And so from the very beginning, as God created my man and woman, he created them with an identity of who they were, and then he created them with a purpose, and that purpose was to be fruitful and to multiply and to fill the earth and to subdue it, to care for creation. So what comes with that? Part of it is the fact that as God created, he purposed and he empowered. God said, I'm giving you a purpose, and I'm going to give you what it takes. I'm going to empower you, because I have the authority to. I'm going to empower you to do that purpose that I've given you. So what comes with being empowered? Well, certainly responsibility, right? To be empowered with something means that we now are responsible for something. That's why some of us don't want a purpose, because then we have responsibility. So I'm messing with your life today if you feel like you don't have a purpose, because I'm telling you that you do, and that means that you're responsible. it also comes with purpose, comes meaning. Because when we know what our purpose is, now we have a reason for existence and a reason to wake up in the morning and a reason to get up and to do something in the world. It comes also with satisfaction. Because when you have a purpose and you know what that is, and you feel the responsibility of that, and you work that purpose, as you see that begin to flourish and develop, you receive satisfaction from that. Purpose also comes with connection. Because when you realize that you have a purpose, now you realize that you're not just an island and you're not just living your life disconnected from everyone else, but that your life matters because it's connected to other lives that matter, and all of us actually have a responsibility to this earth together. And so purpose also connects us to the rest of humanity, connects us to our brothers and sisters, and so we're responsible to live out our purpose as they're living out their purpose, and we're also responsible to encourage one another in that purpose that they've been empowered in. And purpose also comes with opportunity. Because once you realize that you've been empowered for something, and once you realize that you can work in that arena that you've been empowered, now you have an opportunity to do good in the world. But let me tell you this as well, that with that opportunity, you can also do bad in the world. So even though you have purpose, and it may be trying to figure that out, if you get off your purpose, then what is an opportunity to do good can be you doing foolishness. And the reason, if you look around and you see a lot of people that you know, or you see a lot of foolishness existing in the world, is because a lot of people don't know what their purpose is. So they're just messing around. And it causes a whole lot of mess. So first know your identity, and then know your purpose so that you can do something useful in the world. The other thing I want to say about this before I move on is that part of understanding that part of God's rhythm for work and the purpose in work that God has empowered you to is to remind us that work is not bad. We've come under the disillusion that work is not a good thing. And we listen to the culture, and we listen to people around us, and we might even go to our job, and everybody acts like they're in opposition to the job, the purpose that they're here. Like, it's Monday, I got to go back to work. Or I can't wait to get off work so I can do what I want to do. But work is good. So we need to reorient ourselves, even as we think about work, to think of our pace of life and what God is empowered to do, that this is a big part of the reason for our existence, is to work. It's how we're going to find satisfaction and meaning in the world, is through work. And so we need to realize that work helps us to have meaning. It helps us to have opportunity to contribute. It gives us the opportunity to experience satisfaction and the joy of bringing good into the world, of producing and to sharing in the goodness of the world. And so as God is empowering people to work, He's telling them it's a good thing. It's not till later that we read that sin enters into the world. In chapter 3, the fall of humanity, and sin starts to make work a struggle. But that doesn't mean that work was bad. Work has always been good. Sin corrupts it. Part of following Jesus, part of being a disciple of Christ, is reorienting and redeeming how we see work. Reminding ourselves that work is good. And to realize that we were created to produce good in the world through our work. And let me just tell you, some of you are sitting here and you're hearing this, and you may even agree with the concept, but you're confused because you're thinking about like what you do right now for work, and you're saying like, how can I do good in that? And I would say that it doesn't matter whether you're a student or if you work for someone or if you own your own business or what you do, that there are ways that your work can be a good endeavor that produces good in the world and how it shapes humanity. Now, let me caveat that just a minute. There are certain works that are only oriented towards evil. There are certain vocations that are in and of themselves evil. And so if you find yourself presently in a vocation that is actually oriented towards the tearing down of humanity, I would encourage you to find a different vocation. Like prostitution is not good for the world. The gambling industry is tearing away at our society. So just because something is profitable and makes you money doesn't mean that you need to be in it. And so but work by nature is a good thing. We need to redeem our minds about that and think differently about that. Because God wants us to produce, to bring value to the world, something that's organized and something that develops. And here's the encouraging part of this too, that you're not alone in it. Like sometimes you feel like, man, I'm going to work another day and no one likes me there and this and that. But let me just remind you of this. When you go to work, God goes with you. God gave you an identity and a purpose as his child. And when he takes you to where he's given you purpose in this season of life, then he goes with you and he can help you to redeem even that environment. Let me keep moving. The last thing that I want to share with you, the third point, if we have identity and we have purpose, the last thing that God does in this text is he gives us confirmation. In verse 31, it says this. It says, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. God said, what I created, what I designed, it's a good thing. When God created you, he knew what he was doing. And he said it's good. In fact, you're a part of his very good creation. Because God created you in the image of God. And he gave you an identity as his son or his daughter. God empowered you in his creation with gifts, with talents, with resources, with your own experiences and story so that he could purpose you into the world to create good in the world. And then when he did that, he said, very good, what I've done. That's confirmation that your identity and your purpose were not a mistake. That God knew what he was doing. Even if some of you have experiences that cause you to believe about yourself that you're a failure. God says you're not a failure because I created something good. Some of you, the way life has shaped you and the things that have happened to you or the decisions you've made yourself have caused you to feel shame about who you are. When you think of identity, you think of something bad. But God says that it was good. Some of you believe false narratives about yourself, that you're not likable, that you don't have the right talents, that you don't have the right looks, that you don't have the right interests, that you don't know the right things. And because of that, you're not of value. But God said, and he confirms, that what he created is good. So even if people have said negative things about you, even if there are voices that have been said to you that you still hear, or things that you even find yourself saying about yourself that are negative, even if that is true, God is reminding you today that he has created you and he has said that it was good. Part of being a counselor is helping reorient people's thinking around particular behaviors, and some of that is how they view themselves. And one form of therapy is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and basically the concept behind this is to take negative thoughts and help offer positive thoughts for people to reposition how they think about things. So the counselor in me is offering you some theological CBT today. To say that if the world and your own experience in your own life has told you something negative, God said something different. So what do we do with all of this information? What's next? We've heard some good ideas. We've got some things going around in our mind, but we're really not sure, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean for my rhythm of work? What does this mean for how I pace the life that I live? What's next? Well, let me just ask you some questions, and I'll let you determine the answers to that, because it's going to be a little bit different for each of you. The first thing I would ask you is, are you living your purpose? Are you living your purpose for work or for study or for how you serve? Maybe the question that precedes that is, do you even know what your purpose is? Are you still trying to discover that? If you are, that's okay, right? You may know that you have a purpose but not know what it is. Well, keep trying to figure it out. Ask the question. Ask others around you what they think. If you do feel like you know what your purpose is and you're living your purpose, then I would ask you, is there more? Have you been satisfied with okay when God has something that's very good? Because sometimes we've achieved some sense of our purpose and we become satisfied and stuck. I'm a little bit older. You can't tell because I look so young, but I'm a little bit older. And over time, even when I thought I had done good, I realized that God was calling me to more. So I mentioned earlier that Chicagoans rep hard, and so I don't know if you all have a football team in the state, but the Bears are playing tonight. And the Chicago Bears, we have not been very good for a while. Let's just be honest. It's been a struggle. That's rough. But we got a new coach this year. And that coach is not only a good coach, but he's also helped invigorate his team with a new mindset. And part of the new mindset that he's given them is this little chant that he learned back when he was a high school football player many years ago. And so before the game and after the game, he'll often cheer them. And if you look for the hype videos, it'll get you hype. I'll tell you, he knows how to hype up a football team. But the chant goes the whole city is saying the chant. I'll just tell you. But he says this, he says, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. Now, you know what? That's really good for football because it reminds you not just to do the good, but to keep working on it until it gets better, becomes the best. But I'll tell you what, that's way better for life in general. That's way better for how you live your purpose for God. Because some of us have some sense of purpose, but we've stalled out with good because good was good, and we're doing good in the world. And God is saying to you today, who are stalled there, that your good can get better, so don't let it rest. And your better can become the best that God has for you. And so if some of you are sitting here today and you know you have some purpose, don't stop dreaming of that purpose and meaning that God has you, because he may have something more. Is there something that God has given you dreams for or vision for that you've not yet started to enter into because of fear holding you back of what if you might fail? And I want to encourage you to consider opening your eyes and opening your ears what God might be calling you to. The other question I want to ask you is this. Are you distracted by things that are taking you away from purpose? Let's just be honest, we live in a distracted world. I'll confess to you, I'm a victim of it. I'm way more distracted now than I was 20 years ago. I go to the bathroom and get distracted. Because that demon called the phone, right? We're so distracted. There's so many things trying to grab our attention and to give us a message and tell us what our identity is and tell us what we should be doing in the world. We're distracted. So I also want to ask you, are you distracted from your purpose? I'll just say it, that we weren't created to pursue entertainment. We weren't created for TikTok to be strolling through our mind and telling us what we're supposed to be after. We weren't created to always have to see the next movie or the next TV series and keep up with everybody else and all that they're doing. It's too much and it distracts us. We weren't created to every time a new restaurant is trending, I got to go check that out and try that out because everyone else is doing it, or to play the newest video game or the newest upgrade that came out. There's so many distractions in the world. And we're so easily caught into them. We can be distracted by just comparing ourselves to what other people are doing. I mean, social media is a great idea and concept, right? For us to connect with others in the world. It's a great thing. And for me, it's helped me even stay connected and be aware of people's lives that I live far away from now. But so often it becomes a distraction that causes us to look at our life and say, my life's not near as good as those people over there. So ask yourself, are you distracted from your purpose? I don't know those of you in the room. I've met some of you. I've had a little bit of opportunity to get to know some of you. But I can tell you this, even though I don't know what your purpose is on a larger scale, I can tell you, because you're sitting in this room, that part of your purpose is to be a part of this community of faith right here. That if you call the light your church home, then part of the purpose of God in your life is to invest yourself in that community. To get to know one another, to be there to encourage one another, to lift each other up when you're feeling down, to step in like Brother Jose did this morning when someone else is sick and they're not able to be here. To say, I'll serve. That's part of your purpose. Part of your purpose is also to grow in following Jesus. And so to come with eyes and ears open to hear what God is saying to you and then say, okay, what do I do with that? And when the church offers you a rhythm or a devotional, to join in on that. And say, like, what was good on Sunday is good, but that's only like one gathering out of the week. I want to keep digging into this. So when I come back, there's more that's going on. That's part of your purpose. And so even if you're still trying to figure out some of your purpose and what work means for you, and you're just working a job that you need to for the time being, you can be living fully into purpose here in the present. Dr. King, and he's had a lot of quotes, right? There's a lot of things that he said. But one of his quotes that I love really relates to this purpose thing. He said this. He said, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all of the host of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper, and he who did his job well. Whatever your purpose is, whatever God is calling you to uniquely, do it as the greatest of that's ever been done. Live into your purpose. As I close out, I'm really going to land the plane. I really am. Trust me, the kids didn't come in the door yet, so that's a good sign. Let me just warn you of this. Don't try and live someone else's purpose. It's so easy to look at someone else and say, they've got it together, they're doing well, let me just do what they're doing. But that doesn't work. Because that's their purpose. That's who God created them to be. Figure out what your purpose is. Live into that. To do that, you have to ask yourself, who am I? God, who have you made me to be? Why am I here? Then live into that. You may not figure it out like Pastor Jeremy when you're just a young buck on the block, like he was 23 years old coming to me and he knew what he was going to do with his life. And life's punched him in the face a few times. He's realized like some of that wasn't as clear as I thought it was back then. But some of us, it takes longer to figure it out, right? That's okay. Figure it out now. But figure it out for you. Don't go chasing someone else's dream or their vision. Figure out who God has made you to be. If it develops slowly over time, just live into the part you know right now. Be faithful where God has you right now and let him reveal it to you. Now, let me just tell you, like most people's lives, most people's story, my own story, it's not going to play out perfectly. That only happens in fiction novels, right? That only happens in Disney movies. Like, the reality of it is there's going to be some bumps and distractions along the way. So as you're figuring out purpose, as you're trying to live into this thing and develop a rhythm for work that feels healthy and established in the way that God wants you to be, if you feel like it doesn't go smoothly all the time, don't be discouraged in that. Just keep slowly moving forward in that purpose. The beauty of it is, like, although everyone in this room, although myself and people that I know, we don't do it perfectly, there was someone who did it perfectly. We have someone who's modeled purpose, and we have someone who's modeled identity in a way that we can follow. And so when we're confused and distracted, we can look to that person because God sent someone to blaze the trail for us, right? His name was Jesus. And Jesus came to the earth, and Jesus knew what his identity was. And in fact, when he was baptized, the Spirit of God came down like a dove upon him and said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased." And so Jesus in his humanity was being reminded by God the Father that his purpose was a beloved child of God. And so he showed us the way is to like live into that identity, that you're a beloved child of God. And then he knew not only his identity, but he knew his purpose. Jesus said that I came to lay my life down, that no one's going to take it from me. This was long before he endured the cross. But he knew his purpose, and he knew what it was, and he said, I'm going to lay my life down. Jesus knew his purpose enough to say that I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. He knew what he was here for, and he was pursuing that. And his purpose was also to pave a way for you and me to have a relationship with God. That's part of the beauty of his purpose. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. That was Jesus' purpose. I have given my life as a whole, not every day, not every hour, but as a whole, I've given my life to following Jesus of Nazareth. I hope you're about that life too. Be about following Jesus. If you get distracted and can't figure out your own identity sometimes and you're kind of lost in meaning and purpose, just keep following Jesus. Look to the one who laid it out. You are God's beloved child, and he has empowered you to bring good into the world. Pray with me.